All right. I'm here. This is AronRa. I'm here with James, the Amazing Randi, at the Amazing Meeting. This is TAM 2012. What number is it for you?
I think it's 10 or 11 or something like that.
It's 10 or 11 or something like that.
Yeah, we've had several in a couple of other countries. It's hard to keep track.
You do one in Australia, and you have done in England, but haven't done in England recently. Right? Is there any other countries involved?
Let me see. Thinking of all the countries I can think of. Well, I've done so many similar projects, but we haven't called them TAMs.
Okay. Okay, and how do you rank this one?
Oh, yes, this is up and top there. As far as attendance is concerned, we haven't done a final count on the attendance of the registrants. But also last was our record.
I was surprised. I heard rumors that they didn't have quite the attendance they were going to have last year. Yeah, when I'm in the auditorium, I saw a very good turnout. As usual, when I go to these things, I don't get to see many of the speakers. I did get to see Lawrence Krauss. What a standard!
Oh, yeah.
Yes. The funny thing about Lawrence Krauss is that he makes me feel so stupid. Because, and it's a paradox, because I watched his speech and I'm convinced that he explained nothing. And at the same time, I am confused by nothing. And since he explained nothing 4 times, I shouldn't be explaining by nothing anymore.
He has a basic problem, as you can see.
Yes, exactly. But and it's been very good being involved and just being a participant in this event.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, I just sort of wander around as a presence, and my name is on the organization after all. But the enjoyment I get out of this is meeting new people. Now, we gave them special badges. First Tammer, get it? Little play out words there. And we gave them these buttons. We ran out of them pretty soon because we had an awful lot of new attendees this year. And what really surprised me and pleased me no end was the young people that we had. I mean, they're all over the place. It looks like a grade school in some cases because there are young kids who are actively interested and sit there and actually make notes. When you see young kids in an audience making notes, they're not passing notes back and forth. They're serious about this thing, and they come and ask me questions afterwards. Wow, that's very edifying and somewhat humbling as well.
One thing I will give the Amazing Meeting and the skeptic arrangement that you've got set up here is that it isn't exclusively anti-religious rhetoric.
Oh, no, no.
That you have a profound promotion of science, and for a lot of stats, that's yes. The real criteria that we want to get to. And that's actually where I'm, promotion of science. And I also like the what was brought up about magic and in contrast with mysticism and how the deception and all of that. Because that follows into the religious aspect that I want to argue against as well. And you just got a nice mix, I think, with the Mythbusters kind of approach and of course an intelligent bullshit kind of approach. I would so love to see more debunking and higher thinking type entertainment.
Well, we hope that later on today we're going to have an actual test for the $1 billion prize that the JRAP offers. And I hope it's going to come true. We're trying to move it up a little bit earlier so that we can take in the Penn and Teller show afterwards, which is a delight every year, of course. But I hope that this contestant does show up and that he goes through with the test. I have very little fear of losing the $1 million, I can assure you of that, from past experience. We've had hundreds and hundreds of people over the years apply for the $1 million. And remember, no professionals. Well, only twice. Only twice long ago we had a couple of professionals who tried to fool me, and I'm not easily fooled, let's put it that way.
I also have to remind the viewers on this that unfortunately we can't take live questions because of just the way that we've got things set up here. The logistics don't permit it, I'm sorry to say. Yeah, some questions can be directed. If you direct your questions to the Magic Sandwich Show in a Skype message, perhaps, the VPR might be able to select some if they're. Okay, yes, on Blog TV, we could. again, we're not able to monitor the blog TV session right now from the way we are. We had to make some concessions for the way that this was set up. I'm also sorry to say that a number of the people that we expected to be with us today haven't been able to make it, and I'm sorry about that. That includes Zomgit's Chris. Sean Carroll was invited to be here, and apparently he can't make it either. And it was somewhat of a surprise in both cases. So it'll just be Randy and I for a bit, and we're not going to be able to have the normal flow, and probably won't run quite as long as we normally would do for obvious reasons. I mean, everything's busy and chaotic here right now. I appreciate the time that you're giving me.
Well, I have to also apologize to our viewers that I hate to tell you this. I know it will be a disappointment, but I'm not going to be able to do my Naked Dance on Fire for this particular podcast. I know you were planning on that, and it may take away a great deal of the delight, but I'm just not able to do it. The fire regulations here are very fierce.
Okay. That said, I have no other questions. We were talking about, when you do these things in these big hotels in Las Vegas, I mean, one of the first questions that I had, upon arriving, I arrived somewhat late. I got here on Friday, I had to wonder, was Friday the 13th during a full moon really the best time to hold a skeptics conference?
Yeah, I didn't spend a great deal of time anguishing over that decision.
When the first TAM that I moved to was 2 years ago, and I remember there was a very distinct character wandering around the halls out here. He had a three-piece suit on that was badly fitted, and he was wearing these ridiculous hiking boots instead of proper shoes, and he would wear with the suit, and that really made it stand out. That, in fact, he was all of 5 foot tall in a suit that was built for a much larger man. It looked very strange. And he was sweating. He was so passionate about something. He was pacing back and forth, very, very excited. And I remember he started challenging the speakers on stage when we were doing the Q&A, and he seemed convinced about this great conspiracy that that everybody knows about and we're all trying to conceal.
I remember him now, yes.
And what was it that we didn't really land on the moon?
He doubted everything. Yes, he was a conspiracy nut, and those people are impossible to handle. If it rains, they say, now you see, that was precipitation that was induced by supersonics from Mars. They're totally nuts. Nothing happens in nature. Nothing happens naturally. Nothing happens by accident. It's all a conspiracy.
And everybody knows about it and is completely quiet about it. And what is it about contrails from
Oh God, yes, the contrails.
And it's frustrating. Here I am in an aircraft that's creating these contrails, and I'm having a conversation.
Shame on you.
I'm having a conversation with somebody about, she wants to know where I'm going. And I'm going, well, at that time I was going to an atheist convention. And I have to explain that I'm going to an atheist convention. And organized, it was a humanist convention, but it was in New Orleans. So the probability that the person you're talking to who's also going to New Orleans is very slim. Yes. Well, fortunately she was. However, while she didn't have any religious aspect that she was clinging to dogmatically, she did have this thing about what she wanted to express with me as part of her skepticism. This whole thing about how 9/11 was an inside job, and this was what she thought was skeptical thinking. Yeah, and that's an upsetting thing, because a lot of people think that they are thinking outside the box, and that they're free thought and not believing what the news tells them.
The thought that we had some religious nuts from the other side of the world who commandeered two jets in the air and drove them into the Pentagon, into the World Trade Center, and one screwed up, of course, too bad. So not a perfect record, you see. But the fact that religious nuts would do this, and imagine they were going, where were they going, Valhalla or Paradise? I forgot where they thought they were going, and the Virgins were waiting for them. I'm sure they were disappointed to find out they were wrong on that, but as a matter of fact, they were a bunch of old nags. But never, let's not get into the details of it. The fact that the religious nuts could do this, it's not impossible for me to believe, but it's impossible for them to believe.
And again, it's not like religious nuts haven't done similarly.
Exactly.
I mean, like the Murrow building in Oklahoma City, and people wanted to blame that on the government. The government blowing up its own buildings. What's the purpose in that? It's difficult for people when they think that anything outside of us is sketchy. And at the same time, what you mentioned before, very little patients you're going to right now. I have been criticized for presupposing that the 10 million creationists that I argue with is not going to have a valid argument. I'm presupposing after years of doing this.
Lots of experience.
Exactly. I don't think this qualifies as a presupposition. I mean, I have expectations, but they're not presupposed. My presupposition was that they were right. That presupposition was when I was a prepubescent child, and it didn't last much longer.
You were never a prepubescent child.
Well, no, I have to confess, I was a prepubescent child once upon a time, but I never actually believed the stuff that they were teaching.
There you go. There you go.
I believed a lot of crazy stuff, but the young Earth creationism stuff, the way the non-evolution argument, that I never actually bought. Ever.
I'm getting used to this long, deep sigh that I have to do, kind of thing, but I try to suppress it.
Okay. And another thing that doesn't violate my expectations at all was a month or two ago when we got the news about Creflo Dollar. You heard of him?
The name is familiar.
He's an evangelist in Georgia. He makes $80 million a year in his ministries. And he bought a $20 million jet that was donated to him, and the funds were donated to him for the purpose of buying this jet because he complained that he could not get flights from Atlanta to New York that would accommodate his schedule. Well, apparently those are remote locations.
Yes, of course.
But what surprised me, and what didn't really surprise me, was that he fell in with the typical statistics about how you have more instances of domestic violence, child abuse, and things like that more prevalent in devoutly religious areas.
Yes. Sure.
And so here we have this man a month or two ago strangling his daughter. Strangling.
Yeah. Not even a bolt in the head. Right?
He didn't kill her, but he got upset because she wanted to go on a date or something. So because you remember that we also have this correlation with these sexual issues that, they have these huge hang-ups with some sort of degree of sexuality. So this girl wants to have a heterosexual relationship with another boy for 13 years, and he goes violent and strangles her. And I thought, this, I wouldn't have presupposed that he would do that, but statistically.
Yeah, you could have bet on it.
I could have predicted that something like this would happen. And I can bring up many other instances in which similar things happen. So it does seem that people, myself, yourself, I know that you were never a believer also.
No, I had an interesting encounter 2 years ago. I was sitting in my office in Fort Lauderdale, and Andrew remained my assistant at the time. Just looked up from something he was reading. He said, have you ever had any time in your life when you believed all the nonsense? And I had to think for a minute, and I said, no, Andrew. I remember when I was just a small kid, I was thrown out of Sunday school. I'm proud of that. Thrown out of Sunday school for asking questions and saying, how do you know that's true? Well, it's in the book. How do you know the book is true? And at that point, I was thrown out of Sunday school. And probably so, as I said, I found something. You see, there are advantages to all these little fixtures that happen in your life, because I had been given 25 cents to put on the offering plate, you see. That's not an offering that's demanded of you, really, when you come right down to it. And I was supposed to go to Sunday school and put the 25 cents on the plate. Well, I found out that since I was tossed out of Sunday school, the next Sunday, I was given the 25 cents, and I walked out in the street and said, wait a minute. Purdy's drugstore up on Bayview Avenue, for 25 cents, you can get a double flavor ice cream, like butterscotch marshmallow combination, for example. I found that one of the best investments of my life. And my parents, I swear, my parents never found out. And every Sunday, I would be given the quarter, and I would walk up to Bayview Avenue. I'm with my friend Gary Haynes. He only got 20 cents. So he had a single flavor. ice cream sundae. But these are the advantages you have when you're a thinking kid.
My long-winded question, and I'm sorry for everybody that my question was so long-winded, but that's what I was leading up to is, do you suspect that to some degree critical thinking, or the type of thinking that we have, where we're naturally analytical, I mean, do you think this is natural, that some people just innately are going to be more skeptical?
I don't know, because certainly my family history wouldn't have inclined me to believe it if I examined it carefully. It is not brought me to believe that it's in the DNA or any such thing. It might have been the influence of my paternal grandfather. He was religious, but he was a very sensible man, and he taught me how to make up my mind when I was conflicted in my acceptance that was being taught to me. And I don't know that I ever confided in Grandpa about the 25-cent ice cream sundaes. Perhaps I didn't. But nonetheless, I think that he might have had some influence on me. And if it's done at an early enough age, at just a stage where kids are starting to think about these things, I wonder if they get that kind of thought going in their heads, I think that the right kind of influence at that point can make a great deal of difference. Now, this is only my amateur take on it, but I think that that's probably what happened with me.
Now, in my own case, I remember being 7, 8 years old, and my babysitter there was more so even than my family was. And the advantage might have been that while my family was religious, they had a belief that you don't begin to teach the children about their religion until they are about the age of reason. My family's decided was around 8 years old. And maybe that's why. Maybe it's because the old saying, you give me a child until he's 7.
Yes.
And I'll show you the man. And maybe I was spared from that. But it was at that point that my was trying to indoctrinate me in their beliefs. And I found myself asking questions because I want to understand. Right? I'm not just ready to accept it because
you weren't antagonistic necessarily. You just want to know.
I believe that they have the answers. I'm asking people who I think understand. If you're telling me something you can say that it's a matter of fact, it must be a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And that it's known that you're saying is absolute truth. It's everybody knows this, okay, and because I'm just a child, I don't know, please tell me. And what I got. So that's why I wonder, I don't know if I had been raised in a really religious area from that early formative years, would that have affected me over the rest of my life, or would it be more difficult for me to make analytical? And I just wonder, it seems sometimes people just seem to believe from an early age and they're never going to change. You have never had anybody change your mind with the presentations that they can demonstrate for you. Have you ever seen their minds change when they fail?
No, I have not. No. So there must be something very early in our development, and I don't know exactly what. This is beyond my expertise, but well beyond it. But there must be a spot, a time when the decision has to be made, or the question arises, I wonder if that's true. That's one of the most important questions that can occur to the child, I think. And it depends on whether the child is going to be able to handle it or even wants to handle it. Because the parental influence or the adult influence may be so strong that they can't question it. My parents didn't care one way or the other, frankly. They were sort of uncaring to a certain extent on many subjects. And I don't think that bothered them at all, and maybe that's to my advantage.
One of the biggest reasons that I'm happy to be involved with this community and events like yours, to be able to participate or even attend, is that I want to help improve, not just, it's not that I know, all people say that I hate God or whatever. The real reason is I want people to have a better understanding. I don't want, one conspiracy I do agree with, that I suspect is really happening, is the deliberate dumbing down of the United States. It seems to Okay, very good, very good. I probably could blame the connection here at the hotel for lack of anything else I can suspect. Anyway, the thing that the conspiracy that I can suspect is really happening, and I can show pretty good justification for this, is the deliberate dumbing down of the United States. Mm-hmm. And were I not living in Texas, that might not be so obvious.
Yeah. Maybe in Texas, I'm sure it would be much more obvious in a place like Texas.
Yeah, well, they've made it very obvious. I mean, they have done everything they could to undermine education.
Through legislation and everywhere they possibly can. That's true.
And of course, the world that I see is not one where you have very rich and overpopulated third world poverty supporting the very rich. And a lot of people in Texas are actually leaning for that kind of thing. What I would like to see, and at the risk of sounding nationalist, I would like to see America be where we have a higher aptitude for science, we have a higher aptitude for mathematics, where people actually understand things and can achieve things, and actually can not only work the technology that they have, but create and improve the technology that they have. You know, I have a more or less altruistic aspiration for the next generation. Mm-hmm. And I would like to know what, and of course, EPR would like to know how you feel that the online community, the skeptics conventions like this, and the other things that we're all involved with are achieving that goal or are they?
Well, first of all, I must say that I am hugely alarmed, very seriously alarmed about the status of the educational system in the United States of America compared to other countries. We come way the hell down the list on mathematics and science, particularly, and math and science are two of the fundamentals of knowledge about the universe around us and how it works, or how it doesn't work in many cases. I'm shocked by that. I'm so shocked by it and embarrassed by it. I think that should be a national embarrassment, officially. It should be labeled as such. We have all the means, we have the organizations, we have the framework set up for this sort of thing. All the time. Look at the present, and I'm not going to start naming parties or anything such things a little bit, but look at the insistence on God being in on every decision and on every speech that's made out of the White House. It always invokes God at some moment or another because you have to do it or you can't stay in office. It's shameful that you have to do that. By his words, or who's going to be in deep trouble, and the party is going to be in deep trouble. This is not right. This is not correct at all. Spike Lee had the right idea. Do the right thing. Now, that to me is a wonderful bit of philosophy. Do the right thing, not necessarily what's expected or what is going to be advantageous politically or in your neighborhood or whatever. Do the right thing. Yes, likely you had the right idea. And I'd like to see more of that being done. And frankly, in answer to the direct question on the subject, and I'm sorry to drag this out, but I think that the skeptical organizations that exist around the world, certainly as represented here at the amazing meeting, which we do every year, usually in the same place, same time, same station, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that we can do this and attract all these people, and the reaction that I've been getting out in the lobby here of people just coming over to me, in many cases with tears in their eyes, if they're first cameras, as we call them, means it's the first amazing meeting that they have attended. They're saying to me, I'm so glad I came. I wish I had done this years ago. We are serving a function. The James Randi Educational Foundation, I'm very proud to say, we are serving a function at all the organizations, the skeptical organizations around the world, let alone around this country, that have followed our lead, and we are, I believe, sort of the leading organization in this particular respect at this moment in history. We're so proud to be leading this movement of logical, rational, correct thinkers. who want to do the right thing. That's the important thing here. And I think that the skeptical movement is making a big impact. Talking to those people out in the lobby there, you ask any of them, they'll say, yes, this is the right thing to do, and I'm taking the message home with me. That's great. When tomorrow, when I finish saying goodbye to the last person attending this amazing meeting, I'm going to take great pride in the fact that I sent these people out as delegates to the rest of the world. And there are something like 30 countries represented here this particular year. It was 32 last year. I think it's about 30 this year. That's wonderful. They know that we're sending these people back home to spread the word. And when I say the word, it's not with a capital W. No, not a
What are your reflections on the Reason Rally and what sort of long-term impact will get that?
I was very proud to have been asked to speak at the Reason Rally. The Rally for Reason, I think it was officially called, was that right?
I think so.
Close enough for government work, anyway. But meeting on the mall there in Washington and speaking in the company of such people as Richard Dawkins and so many others. I won't name all the giants that were there. But I had to stand in the rain, fully dressed in a suit. I got very wet, and it was a joyous experience. But the question that nagged me and still nags me, why did we have to have a rally for reason? That's like having a rally for staying alive. I mean, come on. But the fact that we did it was very, very important. I hope it's going to get followed up with another one, because people came away from that rally, I think, very pleased with, well, validation of their thoughts on rationality and reason. And certainly they enjoyed the speakers, and they learned the same way that they have here at the amazing meeting as well. I was quite excited over the rally for reason, and I was glad that I was asked to participate. Again, I hope it's going to happen annually, but we'll have to just wait and see.
No, I was surprised that we have a rally for reason and we have protesters protesting reason. And they literally were.
Oh yes, oh yes, yes. But that shows that there are people out there who are so resistant to logic and rationality and truth. They're so objective, so fearful of it. Oh, that's reasonable. I can't have that. That's the truth. I don't want to face that.
There were a number of people that were attending that I recognized to be either people that just had no idea what reason is, and never employed it in their lives.
It never occurred to them.
And they probably can't. I've experimented with one of these people, and it's like they can't reason. I got one guy who I met at the Reason Rally to admit to me that if the Bible says that slavery is moral, then slavery is moral.
That's all there is to it. Bottom line, no argument.
And that was just a horrific realization. The depth at which he cannot question the thing that he's facing. Now, I've encountered a few other people that were attending who obviously have a reason to protest reason, and that is because of their multi-million-dollar annual take from these schools. Because you remember, a fool is defined by them as the one who does not believe impossible nonsense. You've made a career and a great name for yourself in showing what the true definition of a fool is. It's simply somebody who is susceptible to believing improbable things on insufficient basis. And I was pleased last night to see your associates, Penn and Teller, in your magic show, giving very good reasons.
Going la 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 while all this sort of thing is coming up. They don't want to know. They fear the facts that they know are out there. They suspect at least are out there, and they don't want to hear this.
Now, how do you address people of this sort? Because you don't that should be raised in family environments, and sometimes that kind of reinforcement message takes with them. How do you get them out of that and make them more productive?
I wish I had an easy formula for an easy answer. I don't have it. I'm still looking for it. But one thing is to expose them to the rational literature that's out there. And there are so many good books that are written. Good book. I don't mean the good book, no. But there are so many excellent books, really, and essays and such that have been written, and there's lots of information on the internet that we can direct these people to. If we can only get them to put it on the screen and read it.
Yes, no, I can't. One of the things I'm trying to do, I try to get the diehard evangelists to read their Bible. That's really, for a lot of them don't, but they have, they will, and I actually encourage them to do so and watch the Trinity Broadcast Network. Look at what Pat Robertson is actually saying. And you can say, well, this guy doesn't represent my Christianity. Okay, maybe someone who does.
Yes, exactly. Exactly who does. You know, it's in the book. It's in the book.
And when they tell me that religion answers all these questions, I say, give me one that religion answers.
Exactly.
And then show me that answer actually turned out to be correct.
Oh yeah, but they'll flip off the answer. They'll say, oh no, but that's just your attitude. This is your point of view. It's the way you attack it. What's the answer to my question, please? They don't want to answer it.
Now, one thing that comes up several times in this last year, with all the public things that have done in the last year, but also in everyday life. I mean, if you are a skeptic, if you don't believe what they're telling you to believe, then somehow that makes you immoral.
Yeah.
And I recently featured a video by Theoretical Bullshit, who it's his treatise on morality, and having recently been attacked so many times that you're a non-believer, that you have no moral basis, and all of our political candidates in the last year were making similar statements, Newt Gingrich in particular.
Oh, yeah.
And here we have this reminder from Theoretical Bullshit that we have, in many cases, we have so much higher presentations of rationalism, of sanity, and of morality, and of truth, and of everything that religion wants to promise you, of altruism. I mean, everything. We, in the skeptical community, actually have better presentations than the religious communities have ever come forward.
We do. Because they're thinking in another age, they're back in the 1400s. And here we are in the 21st century, I believe. Last time I looked, we're in the 21st century.
But it depends on whether you're north or south of the Mason.
That's very true. Very true. Yes. Very true. Wow.
Yes. Did you hear that question?
Most of it, yes. But a lot of people ask, is the James Randi Educational Foundation an atheist organization? No, it is not an atheist organization. Now, I say that with this explanation to go along with it. I think that all of the employees, certainly the paid employees of the James Randi Educational Foundation, JREF for short, are atheists, or maybe at the very worst, they're deists in some cases. But I don't know of any specifically. This has happened in the past, so I can't cover all bases and know who's been hired at this very moment. But we are not an atheist organization per se because of definition, really. Now, dictionaries don't define words. They give common usage. And Webster's Dictionary very plainly says that in the opening pages of the big collegiate dictionary. The point is that if you take a dictionary so-called definition of the word atheist in Webster's, for example, it gives you two versions. It says, one, an atheist is a person who denies the existence of a deity. That's not the kind of atheist I am. The second one is the one that I am. An atheist is a person who does not find sufficient evidence in existence to believe in the existence of a deity. That's me, because I can't prove a negative. I can't prove there are no unicorns in South Africa, for example. I can't prove some negatives. For example, I am not a, because first of all, I'm much cuter. There's no question of that. And my neck is not long enough according to definition, but that's by definition. See, that's not by opinion. So I am an atheist of the second kind. That is to say, I don't find any evidence that convinces me of burning bushes and virgin birth and horses.
And the word atheist has such a poison that many of my own personal friends have refused to use the atheist label. And I know that many of the greatest speakers that the atheist community has also have refused to use that label. I mean, Carl Sagan used, I believe, the former definition, right? And consequently, he never described himself as an atheist. He said that by some definitions,
yes,
atheism is quite secular. Yes, I mean, brilliant. But one of my oldest and dearest friends told me that I am not an atheist because there's no way that I could know for certain that God does not exist. And I have to tell him, no, you are an atheist because you're not convinced yourself that a God exists.
Exactly.
And he tried to bounce that back on me, and he says, well, I'm not convinced there is a God, but I'm not convinced there isn't one either. Well, it doesn't matter.
Now we have the violence in the background.
People are so afraid of that word. Now, one of the other definitions that we have to look at when we're talking about skepticism and the requirement of atheism, another definition of this may be my own, and I think it's accurate, so I'll share it with you. Free thinkers. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, free thought does not require that you not believe in a God. Free thought has no required beliefs, and it has no prohibited beliefs. I would think, and I certainly don't mean to speak for the entire free thought community, but I will pretend to for a moment, that we don't care whether you believe in a God or not. The only thing we do care about is why, if you do.
Yeah. Good point.
And why applies for anything else. I hope that works for you. Anyway, did you have another question, DPR? We're open for one.
I didn't get.
Do you ever have the known the famous evangelists or famous theologians or whatever ever accost you to say that they have evidence or proof of a deity or of their religion?
No, these people have not ever come to me. I think they treat me as someone not to be feared. That sort of annoys me. I'd like to be feared a little bit. But yeah, I've never been approached by Pat Robertson or any of the others with that particular question. I'll put it that way. No, I've never been assailed by them, I would say. I think I would like to have a little exchange with some of them, because I'd like to see them flailing around and trying to avoid actually answering the question, because that's what they do with great aplomb and great skill.
The skill is so great that were we to have one of these accomplished theologians in a room with you, I'm sorry to say that we would not be able to see your brilliance, and we would not be able to see them flutter back and forth about not being able to answer the question. What instead we would see is what we saw in the unfortunate incident of Thunderfoot and Ray Comfort were on the screen. Thunderfoot, it comes from a science-based community. He comes from a realm of people who think scientifically. And again, Ray Comfort hit him with, you don't know how the universe began. I do. And his declaration that he knows that which no one even can know.
Yeah. But I think he's convinced of it. I think that he's actually saying what he believes is true.
But when they base all of these things on logical fallacies, and they admit that they know that it's a logical fallacy, they don't realize that a logical fallacy applies. The presuppositionalists, for example, fully admit that they have a circular argument, but they don't understand that the circular argument invalidates itself.
Oh, goodness. Well, how much time we got?
We have all that you want to spend with it.
Well, no, I remember that accosting in the mall someplace or other, and of course they used all the usual approaches and such. I think that's something that I can't really discuss in detail, because I had to cut them off at a certain point rather than wasting my life. I'm 83 years of age, going on 84. And I was really standing in the rain there arguing with these fools. That's all they are. They are fools because they are not using rationality and not using reason. They are not applying it if they know how to use the application of reason, which I think they do not know. It's a certain art to a certain extent. And I just gave up the argument and walked away from them because I was wasting my time. And I was falling more and more into the semantic traps that they try to get you in. And, hey, I'm too old to be getting involved in that sort of thing. And I must admit, I didn't chicken out. I just walked away because I was no longer interested in hearing the same vapid arguments on these subjects.
Well, I have to correct one thing. when you were talking with Eric Hovind, you were not dealing with a fool. This is a man who makes millions of dollars per year fooling people.
Yeah.
So there's a different word for him, and I think a more appropriate description would be crook.
Yes, okay, I'll agree with you there, I believe, yes, probably true. But I just don't have the time for it.
As far as the presuppositional argument and using your reasoning to validate your reasoning, I've tried to explain to people that that's the purpose of objective verification. Look at what objective means.
Yes.
Why do we have this reliance on evidence? And why do we have this reliance on the evidence that we present, not be our own interpretation, but must be evaluated and examined and criticized and tested and challenged by other people? And that's, when they say objective, they mean subjective. They don't know how to answer this.
So they don't know the language at all.
Yes. Another question, sir? Do you have one?
Yes, I'm not aware of all the details of this particular case, but I have been informed about it, of course, by many readers of Swift, the JRS blog. They gleefully poured all this news into me. I'm not aware of all the details of the trial of the decision, but I think it's a step forward, at least. The point is, I don't know how much homeopathy it took in, because the very principle of homeopathy itself is not only questionable, it's ridiculous, it's childish, it's very juvenile in all of its... look at when it was developed. This Van Hahnemann was not much of a thinker because he didn't cover any of his points with any rationality or reason, or try to cover them over and get around them. But homeopathy is such a silly notion. You diluted medicine down to the point where there are not only no molecules of it left, but you develop it, you dilute it and develop it far beyond that point. It's down to the point where not a molecule of the original substance can be present, and then they fall back on, oh, but the vibrations are still there. If you gave them this room full of vibrations, they wouldn't know what it looked like or what the vibrations do. They talk with language that doesn't mean anything. And therefore, I am very encouraged by this particular action, and I hope that this is taken up by other nations as well. I particularly like to see the UK go in that direction, because the UK is absolutely plagued with homeopathy. It's bad enough in Canada, and it's certainly bad enough here in the United States of America. And I just hope that we will take a good look at that. As a matter of fact, there was a speaker from Australia here today who was talking about changes in Australian law that have been made directly as a result of cases that were brought against people who were advertising falsely products that wouldn't do what they said they would do. Why can't we make these changes here in the United States of America? Why not? Well, there are lots of reasons for it, and that's another program altogether, I guess. But I really wish it could be done, and I wish there were some politicians out there that were brave enough, bold enough, and let's say honest enough. I was looking for the word. I couldn't think of it. I don't use it very often. Well, I'm applying it to these people.
You mentioned health.
All right, well, that's a very deep and very involved question, of course. But it depends what a belief in Christianity is, what we mean by a belief in Christianity. In the general concept of the Son of God coming to earth and such, okay, there's no evidence of that you can present for me. But then when you get down to the nitty-gritty, all the details of it, it depends on the depth of belief. Well, they believe in everything, burning bushes and flying horses. No, that's the Quran, I'm sorry. I got mixed up for a moment there. And talking serpents and such. Is that part of it? Belief in the Bible, in the mythology of the Bible? Is that part of Christianity too? It depends on the individual take that each Christian has on his or her religion.
If I could help you with this question, I mean, while I was never a creationist, there was a time in my childhood when I considered myself a Christian, and the reason that I did was not for faith-based beliefs. I didn't know what faith meant. If I understood how inherently dishonest faith was, then I wouldn't have been.
Oh, it can be. Not necessarily is. It can be.
No, if you assert as fact that which is not evidently true, I think I can argue that is a dishonest position.
Yeah,
fundamentally. But the reason that I believed was because I thought I had evidence. Now that evidence turned out to be speculation. Okay, but if that person is convinced that they're tuned in to something that can't be tested, and that there's no way that we can verify that it's actually got a connection to some untested thing, well, I can't say that doesn't exist. But it comes down to reason. I mean, a skeptical thinker is going to be looking for the reasons to believe something, and he's going to be doubting things to a certain degree. Well, that's nice.
Thanks very much.
At least we've gotten assurances of that.
Who was responsible for that? Is that the local?
Yeah, obviously not the local.
No, I must tell you that we don't have candidates yet, because we it's April the 1st, you see. That's when we actually come up with our candidates and announce them every year. But there are a lot of eligibles. Oh yes, all kinds of eligible people, and I leave that to my board to make up their minds on. They have to mull that serious question, of course, as to who's going to be honored by a Pigasus Award. But we have some eligible people at this very moment. I shouldn't get into that because that's the board's business. I promised I wouldn't give you.
Okay, what about this then? Your experience in past TAMs and the current one, has this given you any plans either for next year's team or for any other endeavors you'd like to take part in?
Oh yes, because we get a lot of feedback. We get a lot of feedback from people who register here, almost from the very top, and it's coming in on email too. But what really edifies me enormously is the fact that most of these things are not complaints about something that's happened at TAM, but suggestions that are built upon people's comments that were made at TAM. I suggest that you might want to pursue this particular angle of this person's talk or subject or whatever. And that's always very encouraging. And we use that. We use these suggestions because we've got very informed people here today. We've got well over 1,000 people who come from largely varied backgrounds, every color and size and shape of persons. As you see them walking up and down the aisle, at every age too. And that's what I'm very encouraged that I mentioned earlier, that we see so many young people here. Some of these young people, I'm sure, are going to send in notes saying, I'd like to hear about this and that. So that's how we base our subjects at TAM.
Okay, I'll give this event credit for one more thing too. They're always complaining that many of the atheists and skeptics, that we have the curmudgeons, the old white guys with the great beards.
Usually that.
Yeah.
And white.
But we've had so much diversity at this event.
Yes.
I mean, we have so many nations, as you mentioned, in 30 different countries, and of course, all these gradations of color and fashion.
Yes.
And age. And age and gender identification. We have very amusing
yes.
that I understand there were transgender couple with multicolored hair, and they're elderly, which makes it even funnier.
Yeah. But it's refreshing because we're able to accommodate folks like this.
We can accommodate because we can tolerate, and that's another important thing.
Very important.
I have noticed a very sad correlation. It is also one of the reasons that drives me on against dogmatism, against forced thought, but having required beliefs and prohibited beliefs, because they don't just extend to religion. When you're part of religion, you are expected to vote according to the way you hold. And you are supposed to hate what they tell you to hate. And many of these religions, especially the more religious they are, the more likely that it is that group is attached in some way to a hate group. And that hate group is probably going to have the word family in its name.
Yes. Oh yes. Well, I am very pleased by the diversity of that. That's one factor that really strikes me each and every year. I look around and I see a greater variety of people. Folks, I'm just blown away by it. And I'm also rather awed by it to the point where I'm beholden to these people. I know that I owe them so much because their presence here means that they paid the price of admission. they donated towards the James Randi Educational Foundation, and I'm so grateful for the fact that we could return the service to them that they've given us by laying in the cash, by financing it, by paying the fee to attend here. I'm so grateful for that. It really moves me a great deal. And the volunteers, the massive volunteers we have out there that are served of waiting at doors and taking care of people and acting as information sources. This is it's just humbling. It is really very humbling. I don't humble easily, but I am humbled by the fact that TAM is such a great success in the
Your staff, and again, I want to apologize to the audience that a lot of the things we hoped were going to come to play in this show didn't. Your staff was very excited about wanting to bring in a few other speakers that were presenting new scientific data for the audience and new discoveries, new revelations in science. That, to me, is very encouraging too. I mean, does the have involved themselves in scientific research as well?
Well, no, we don't have the budget for that, but I have personally supported a number of folks like that. I'm not following their company or anything like that, but I've managed to send voluntary contributions to some of the people who have these things where they need a little bit of money to get a blog going or some sort of connection politically or whatever. But they need some influence that way, and I've lent whatever I have to these people. I'm very much in favor of them, and I'm talking on a personal basis now, not money out of the jail, of course. But I do it very quietly, and I think that sort of thing should be done quietly and anonymously. And I'm very happy to do that. It's satisfied me because so many people have given us and given me personally substantial.
But if there are no other questions, Stevie, or do you have another question here we can get out here?